everybody, and welcome to the next 2025 British Touring Car race review. With me is my good friend Ben. Say hello.
Hello!
And today we're going to be covering the Oulton Park series of races, the race meeting at Oulton Park in lovely Cheshire, which got hit with sun, rain and everything in between. First things first, just want to quickly say thank you as always for your continued support. It's always appreciated whenever we do the videos and everything like that. Also, you can always find our 2025 British Touring Car playlist down in the description like we always have. And a couple of notes to just kind of mention just coming into this meeting before we begin. So this was the last race meeting for Steve Ryder, who has presented the BTCC for many years. He's presented other things as well, which goes as far back as like F1, even the Olympics, football, that sort of thing. It goes quite a fair bit back, and he's been doing it for 5 decades. So from myself and from Ben, Steve Ryder, thank you very much for your contribution to the British touring cars and your presenting style. You're going to be very much missed in the paddock, and it's been amazing to see you present the sport, but also just as a person. I've met Steve myself in person, and he's great to talk to. But yeah, thank you very much for presenting it, and all the best with your retirement. Ronan Pearson was out of a drive following more financial troubles. You may remember he had something similar last year, and Finn Leslie has come in to replace him. Now, we don't know if this is going to be for this meeting only or the rest of the season, so we'll find out in due course. So, moving into qualifying then. Qualifying in Group 1 saw eliminations of Hill, Rowbottom, Shedden, Patterson, Jelly, now Finn, Leslie and Nick Hamilton were the drivers to get knocked out in Group 1. Group 2 saw eliminations of Osborne, De Leon, Moffat, Hall and Halstead. Now, originally this was Proctor that was knocked out, and Lloyd got through, but Lloyd's fastest lap got disallowed, which dropped him out, and as such saw Proctor go through. However, in Part 2, Chilton, Cook, Rainford, Proctor, Noble and Taylor Smith went from the pack. And obviously we got down to the Fast 6, and once the Fast 6 was underway, Tom Ingram was a man on a mission. He put in such a monster of a lap. Now, we thought at the time when we did the race review for Thruxton that Sutton's lap was probably the biggest one of the season. We had no idea just how fast Tom Ingram lapped Oulton Park. As he put it, the car was in a perfect spot, and the car was on rails the whole lap. I mean, this is something that Sutton's used to saying, but Ingram was just in a class of his own. He put in a lap that was a 1:23.856, a new track record for qualifying, and it was nearly half a second faster than the second place Hyundai. Yes, another Hyundai on the front row of Chris Smiley for Restart Racing. Dan Camish in third, just short of the half a second mark, but only 1,000th of a second, or 100th of a second, back from Smiley. Moving into race 1, we saw a great start by Ingram to lead. However, Camish was soon up into second from the off, with Sutton swiftly moving up to third place ahead of Smiley. Proctor roughed up Rainford to make up a place, dropping the BMW down a few places. Lap 2 saw some drastic action as Osborne and Smiley came to blows. Osborne and Jelly came to blows, as Rowbottom was also in the mix. Both cars surprisingly were able to carry on despite the damage. However, the barrier was badly damaged, and it saw the safety car come out because of it. Once the restart happened, it was all hands on deck as there were several battles going on, including a familiar one as Max Hall and Dexter Patterson came to blows, which broke the rear left axle of Hall's car and essentially put him into retirement. Lap 6 saw Aaron Taylor Smith go into battle against Moffat's car, with him defending the place successfully. Elsewhere on the track, we saw some hard defending from Dorlin against Cook on the start-finish straight, where he nearly put him in the wall. So, yeah, dangerous but hard as well. Was lucky to escape without a penalty for that. Lap 7 saw Dan Lloyd up to 16th place from the back. However, once lap 8 came around, he was past Rowbottom and finally up into the points. Lap 9 saw Darlin versus Cook come to a head as he defended hard against Cook and ran off the circuit. However, once he rejoined, it was a close one between the two cars, and if Cook didn't brake at that point. He would have smashed into the back of Darling. Lap 10 saw the Hyundais go into battle up at the front as Chilton took Morgan for 5th place. Proctor looking at making a move shortly after, but it didn't come to anything. Lap 11 saw 3 not go into 1 as De Leon tagged Taylor Smith's car, which then slid into Moffat's car, which caused him to spin out and put him down the order. Dan Lloyd was up into 12th place by lap 13 and it was a good recovery drive so far. Once we got to lap 15, we saw Hill manage to get past Proctor for 7th place. And coming on to the final lap of the race, we saw a dramatic position change as Sutton was passed with ease by Smiley to take the final podium spot. However, up at the front, it was Ingram who won in dominant fashion, with Camish and Smiley rounding out the podium. The race 1 results were Tom Ingram is race winner and fastest lap for good measure. Camish was 2nd with Smiley 3rd, Sutton 4th, Chilton 5th, Morgan 6th, Hill 7th, Proctor 8th, Cook 9th and Darling in 10th. Over to you for race 2, Ben.
Yeah, so race 2 was an interesting one. I will say I won't have a lot to talk about for race 2, but it was more than where the race sort of was like a nice race. There just wasn't a lot of like action as such to speak about, but it was nice to watch around the lovely looking Oulton Park circuit. So, Sutton had a really good start. It was quite impressive. He did another one of them insane sort of get-goes he seems to be doing this year, where he got straight from 4th and up to 2nd, and he was immediately more or less on the back of Ingram. This was quite good to see again. As such, of the previous round, it was interesting to see him just go for it on a grid start. Whatever he's doing, it is definitely a talent at this moment for that. So yeah, and then not long after the first lap going round, Robot went off and he dropped a few places, and you'll see there's other things happening with Napa what are a similar fashion in this race. So on to lap 2. Sutton was now going for it on Ingram, as you could tell from that good start. He was definitely trying to go for the lead. But then Morgan sort of caught up and it seemed to settle things down. Camish at this point was down to 5th by the end of the lap, so he's dropping already. Halstead spun off and then he had to rejoin. And now on to lap 3. Lloyd had a spin off as well. It seems to be sort of a theme in this race. But at this point, he went into the barrier because it was a bad spin, and this brought out the safety car. So on to lap 10, we got back going again. Camish now dropped down to 9th, definitely not his race. On to lap 11. Shedden and Rainford decide to have a bit of banger racing with each other, and surprisingly Rainford came off reasonably well but not too much damage, which is impressive going against Shedden with his sort of bulldogish ways from the past. Going into lap 16, 2 more cars decided to give up. Aaron Taylor Smith's car decided that the engine just didn't want to be an engine anymore, so it blew itself up. Halstead went off at the hairpin too. He just had enough, I think. And then Ash Sutton crossed the line to get his 4th win this season, which is quite impressive because it seems this year it's a season of everybody sort of seems to be doing a bit of different with wins and such, which is quite nice to see. So the results are, your winner with fastest lap was Ash Sutton, 2nd was Morgan, 3rd was Chilton, 4th was Ingram, 5th was Hill, 6th was Robon, 7th was Cook, 8th was Proctor, 9th was Shedden, and in the end, Camish got to 10th. Over to you for race 3, Brad.
Thanks, Ben. So yeah, the last race saw Gordon Shedden put on pole. However, it was a wet affair for the final race of the day, as the downpour had come within an hour of the last race. As a result, all the cars started on the wets, but the weather didn't hold on. It did end up becoming a bit more drier. So who knew what was going to happen? Well, on lap 1 we got our answer. Shedden led with Cook and Hill moving up into 2nd and 3rd respectively. The Knickerbrook chicane all went wrong for Cook as he went off and had to rejoin behind Hill. Smiley's day was over as his car was dead basically. He pulled over at the side of the road and was out. Cook didn't let up as he was on the attack against Hill's BMW on lap 2, but then it went wrong again as Cook went off at the last corner, which dropped him right down the order as he outbraked himself. The following lap saw more action as Moffat and Hill were fighting for position. Lap 4 though was where it all went towards Sutton, and then it seemed like the clouds parted as Proctor and Camish touched, which allows Sutton to get past them both in the matter of corners. Lap 5 saw Lloyd go off at the hairpin and in turn drop down the order. Shortly following this, Jelly went off at the Knickerbrook chicane, which meant that he whacked Hall's car when he came back onto the track. Lap 6 saw Ingram to be the next victim of the off-track excursions at Knickerbrook. One lap later, we saw Hall go off into the gravel. However, further back, Ingram had dropped down to 12th place. But due to Hall's car being stuck, it brought out the safety car once again. Lap 10 saw the restart as Sutton went from 4th to 2nd. But Hill defended, dropping him back to 3rd. But then it was all drama as Chilton and Doble came together at Knickerbrooks. It seems a very popular corner on race day, which put Doble out of the race and brought out safety car number 2. Once it was back in, Nick Hamilton was off and into retirement after turn 1. Ingram, though, was loving the new conditions as he was up into 7th place very quickly. Another lap, another DNF, which this time was for Jelly on lap 14, I think this was. Lap 17 was where it all went wrong for Hill as he went off the track and dropped down to 7th, which promoted Sutton to 2nd and Ingram to 4th place. Up at the front, it was Gordon Shedden, though, who made it the perfect 10. 10 different winners this season, with Sutton and Rowbottom rounding out the podium. So your race 3 results for a mixed up race was on the Flash then. Gordon Shedden, aka Flash Gordon, was your race winner with Sutton 2nd and Rowbottom 3rd. Ingram 4th with Proctor 5th, Camish 6th, Hill 7th, Darlin 8th, Rainford 9th and Osborne rounding out the top 10. Fastest lap went to Dexter Patterson, who finished in 14th place and was done on the dry tyres. A few of the guys did try to do, They did try to do the alternate strategy of finishing on dry tyres because they thought it might gain an advantage, and it was starting to come at the end, but it was not nearly enough time to make up the ground, so that was a shame. But what does it do to the drivers' standings? Well, Sutton and Ingram, there's nothing that separates them. 10 points separates the pair of them. You really couldn't do any... Like, these two lads, you couldn't separate them whatsoever. There's a massive gap between Ingram and Camish. Over 60 points difference between 2nd and 3rd. So you know that this season's a two-horse race. Rowbottom is in 4th, ahead of Hill, Morgan, Chilton, Cook, Smiley and Charles Rainford. Rounds out the top 10 of the Drivers' Championship. So Ben, who are your winners from the weekend?
I'd definitely say Shedden because it was a really good weekend for him. I'd say Rainford seems to be doing quite well in my opinion. He's sort of it's started to see that it's interesting to watch what he can do with the car. The other person I'd also say was obviously the man of the day, Steve Ryder, him going away from the sport, he'll be extremely missed. It's a person who used to watch quite a lot of old school rally and watch a lot of clips. You'll hear his voice in that, and I'd sort of say for me it's definitely Sutton as well. And I'd say bigger group than I normally pick, but I'd pick them.
It's interesting because, Steve Ryder, of course, I'd definitely pick Steve Ryder. For me, I think it was Ingram because of his pole lap, which was an absolutely astonishing pole lap, especially with the gap between 1st and 2nd. In the wet, it would be exaggerated, but that was done in the dry, so you know for a fact that car was just extremely quick. The race 1 win, it was never in any doubt. I think that Camish's fastest lap was it was a case of Camish had done the fastest lap of the race, but then Ingram had done it 1 lap later and he'd done it by 3/10 or something, which was nuts. I think he made over a second or so in 2 laps as a gap. So this is kind of what Sutton's done, which was quite amazing. I thought restart racing overall, I know that Dan Lloyd didn't have the best time this week during this race meeting. I think that he did reasonably well for what it was. But also as well, this is a weird way of saying a winner, but for me, Hyundai was a massive winner because essentially, if you were driving a Hyundai this weekend, you were quick. And that showed from not just Ingram, but other drivers as well. Morgan was right up there. Proctor was right up there. Chilton was there. Even friggin' restart racing, Chris Smiley. And I know that, after the problems that he had, his lap being thrown out, in qualifying for Dan Lloyd, he came back and did a really good drive. And I know that he had that accident in race 2. He was able to get back on the grid for race 3, and I was like, this is... I know that it was probably his worst race meeting of the year, I think. But for me, like I said, Hyundai definitely the winner from this weekend. I mean, they're still behind Ford in the championship for the manufacturers. Team Virtue are behind Napa in the teams championship, but I think that it proves that if you've got the car at the right level, not just you'll benefit, but everybody else will as well. So yeah, I think that's the other thing is as well. I think that we've had very much a case of it being the last race meet for Steve Ryder. I think that it had been a pretty good race meeting. It was a nice ending for him to end his career on. Obviously, now we go into a long summer break, as touring cars does. I know normally it takes a while for touring cars to come back round again. The next one will be Croft, I believe, which is in early August, so we have quite a while. Obviously, all the teams are going to go away and they're all going to come back. But
coming out
realistically,
of Croft, you will know where everyone is for the season, because if they haven't sorted the car by then, they won't be.
Yeah, and the thing is, Ben, can you see any more winners? Any more surprise winners?
I'd really love it. I'd love, to be honest, this year, I'd love to see more from Cook, and I thought I was gonna, but this weekend, I don't know. I want to see something this year, like, coming again. Like, it's been a nice year of bringing out the turbos and everything, no more hybrid, but I'd like to see sort of something different. You know, get a couple of, not just like you've race 1, race 2 people, and like obviously race 3 is always a bit different. I'd like to see someone different get race 1 and race 2 as well. It'd be nice to just spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'd like to see out of the top 10, I think everyone's already had a win apart from Morgan, Chilton's already had one. Morgan, Cook and Smiley. I think most likely one there's going to be Cook out of them 3 to win. Yeah. Morgan probably won't be far off. I think for Smiley to win, it'll have to really go his way. But I think Cook and Morgan are definitely looking at going to get a win, I think, back end of the season. I mean,
yeah, it seems it's going that way.
In realistic terms, I can see if after 15 races, the gap at the top of the championship is 10 points between first and second, and 60 between second and third. I mean, to be honest, can you see anybody else getting close to Sutton or Ingram winning this title? I can't.
No, normally I'd be saying, oh, Hill's got a chance, and but I don't honestly think. I think it's sort of a Sutton and Ingram year again, which is nice. It'll be a different champion again to last year's one, but yeah, I don't know. Unless something really goes wrong for them two, it's got to be one of them, because they both seem to be consistent this year in different ways. So yeah, it's interesting now. It's going to come down for as I always look at it, the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think we'll have plenty of fireworks when we get back racing again. Speaking of fireworks and everything like that, let us know down in the comments what your thoughts on this weekend's racing was at Oulton Park. Did you like it? Did you not? Let us know your spicy and controversial opinions in the comments. We will be back for the Croft weekend, which, like I said, is in early August. There may be 1 or 2 videos out between then, but we'll see. But until the next video, thank you very much once again for your continued support, wherever you are in the world. And we will see you all for our next video. So until then, thanks very much for watching. Have yourself a good evening, and we'll see you all again soon. Ta-ra.
Bye.